Hello, my name is Stephanie Rodriguez, and I'm going to talk about misrecognition and critical consciousness. An 18-month-old boy with pneumonia and chronic malnutrition. Definition: pneumonia is an infection that inflames the air sacs in one of both lungs. The air sacs may fill with flu or pus, purulent material, causing cough or phlegm, or pus, fever, chills, and difficulty breathing. A variety of organisms, including bacteria, viruses, and fungi, can cause pneumonia. Chronic malnutrition is a condition that develops when children do not eat the correct balance of nutrition in the first 1,000 days of life, from conception to the age of 2, resulting in the irreversible stunting of their cognitive and physical development.
Hundreds of millions of people go to bed hungry. It doesn't have to be this way. Here's what you need to know. Hunger and poverty go hand in hand. Around the world, 1 in 9 people can't get enough food to lead healthy, productive lives. That's a staggering number of hungry people, enough to form the 3rd most populous country on Earth. But getting enough to eat is only half the story. Millions more people are malnourished, meaning they can't access the kinds of food their bodies need as part of a nutritious and well-balanced diet. Malnourishment is everywhere. Fully 1/3 of the world's population struggles with malnutrition. Hunger hits girls and women hardest. 60% of those who live in hunger are female. Women in hunger are so deficient of basic nutrients that over 300,000 die during childbirth each year. The thing is, none of this is necessary.
Then applications in medicine. An 8-month boy had been predisposed to pneumonia by malnutrition. More than 80% of families in Chiapas suffered from food insecurity. Dr. Eyre commended a team of like-minded community members and other health professionals to start a nutrition education program.
His tummy hurts, but Nawasi can't put that into words. At almost 3 years old, he should be bigger, and he still can't talk or walk. 4 of his siblings have already died of malnutrition, a condition caused by a lack of food and nutrients. His father shows us how Nawasi sometimes eats the crumbled bricks off the wall.
I often wait for my husband all day to bring money. He often comes home empty-handed. Our children cry at home, asking for food, but we cannot give it.
This is some of what they can afford. Stale rice full of ants. We're told it's duck food. And this kind of diet is having an impact on millions of young children across Indonesia.
Malnourished, stunted children are smaller than other children. Their brain development is different. Their intelligence is not as good as other kids. There is also a lack of knowledge by the parents. We need to teach them that it needs to be addressed.
One of the main causes of malnutrition is poverty, the lack of opportunity and no access to education. It's something that affects millions of people. And what that means here in Indonesia is that 1/3 of children under 5 years old are stunted. Now, that's according to a World Bank report. But what that means is that they're not developing properly. And many are worried that that could have implications on this country's future.
Then we have pros and cons. Pros: there are foundations that help poor people with donations and food. And nutrition programs give talks and find a solution for this problem. But cons are malnutrition can predispose to pneumonia and other diseases. And poor people do not have access to antibiotics to treat pneumonia.
Around the world, there are about 800 million people who don't get enough food to live healthy and active lives. The good news is that the number of hungry people is declining, but there's still a long way to go. And those numbers do not tell the whole story of hunger. Let's talk about malnutrition, which includes a few key challenges that go beyond simply not getting enough food. For example, many people are overnourished or obese, and that number is growing globally. It may also appear that someone is eating the right amount of food. However, they could still be malnourished. This is called hidden hunger. Imagine if, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day, all you eat is white rice. No vegetables, no meat, no sauce. With no vitamins or minerals that normally come from eating a variety of foods, you might feel weak or become sick more easily. You would become malnourished and have hidden hunger. Hidden hunger affects about 2 billion people globally. Malnourishment is especially dangerous for young children. In particular, malnourishment during pregnancy and the first 2 years of life may result in physical and mental challenges affecting children into their adult lives. The result can be a story of ongoing poverty and hunger. This is Mary Ellis. Her parents are farmers in Nicaragua, where families grow and eat mostly rice, beans, and corn. They discovered that Mary Ellis was not getting enough nutrition, so they joined a training program in their community. Through workshops, they learned to grow and eat more fruits and vegetables. Mary Ellis began to get stronger and more active. Her future looked a lot brighter. Her family.
Then we have issue applied in Ecuador. In Latin America and the Caribbean, child nutrition is 11% and child obesity is 7%. Malnutrition can reach 24% in Ecuador. In Ecuador, child malnutrition has been characterized by a slow decrease in malnutrition, which continues to affect about a quarter of those under 5, and an upward trend in childhood overweight and obesity.
This is how most children in Africa try to survive. 2 years of drought have once again left these children suffering, as hunger seems to be their unfortunate fate. The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, says nearly 1 million African children face severe acute malnutrition. Dry conditions resulting from the El Niño weather phenomenon have caused one of the worst droughts of the last 50 years. In a UNICEF report, Regional Director Leila Garagos Lupakala says the El Niño weather phenomenon will wane, but the cost to children, many who were already living hand-to-mouth, will be felt for years to come. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, most regions of the continent will need approximately 2 years to recover.
We don't anticipate that there's going to be any significant recovery in 2016, so we will need to be providing very sustained assistance through this year and into the next year to make sure that children and their families are supported to recover.
According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, serious food shortages can be expected. Well, it's too early to provide detailed estimates of the population likely to be food insecure in 2016 and 17. It is expected that the population in need of emergency food assistance and livelihood recovery support will increase significantly.
Then we have conclusion. This story of discrimination and disposition was an important fundamental of chronic childhood malnutrition in Chiapas, which according to the 2012 National Health and Nutrition Examination of Survey affect 44% of the children in rural areas, 4 times the national average.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Hill, and today we're going to be talking about walking pneumonia in children. Now, I've always thought this is a funny name, because the pneumonia is not walking, right? The child is walking. This is distinguish it from pneumonias that might leave the child bedridden or hospitalized. It's a very old, archaic term from a time before when we knew what caused pneumonia. We just knew that some were really bad and some weren't so bad. Most pneumonias in children that don't make them seriously ill are caused either by viruses, which tend not to respond to any therapy whatsoever, or by what we call atypical bacteria. These are usually members of the Mycoplasma group, although chlamydia is another type of atypical bacteria. Atypical bacteria we usually treat with a group of medications called macrolides. These include erythromycin, clarithromycin, and azithromycin. Among the most popular of these is probably azithromycin, Zithromax, by brand name. That's because it doesn't seem to cause as much intestinal upset, and you can take as few as 3 days of medicine, in some cases just one big dose, and be done with the infection. It lasts much longer in the bloodstream, so you don't have to take it for as long to treat the infection. Diagnosing a pneumonia is based partly on symptoms. Has your child had an unexplained cough for more than 2 or 3 weeks? Does your child have chest pain? Is he or she short of breath or wheezing? Now, wheezing may only be heard by a stethoscope exam and often indicates a viral infection or asthma, but sometimes we see this with pneumonia as well. Fevers that go on more than 3 days, accompanying a runny nose, stuffy nose, or cough, can suggest either a pneumonia or a bacterial sinus infection. So if your child's fever lasts more than 3 days, or if your child has a fever that comes on for a few days, goes away for 24 hours, and then comes back, that child needs to be examined by a physician and probably treated with antibiotics. Diagnosing pneumonia, we listen to the chest with a stethoscope. There's a very specific sound that we hear that's the sound of fluid inside the tiny little air sacs of the lungs. We call those ralls or crackles, and those are strongly suggestive of pneumonia. We may or may not get a chest x-ray. Sometimes the history and the exam is all you really need to know. Sometimes we do want to get a chest x-ray. Sometimes we see a pneumonia on chest x-ray that we didn't hear when we listened to the lungs. Sometimes we hear a pneumonia that doesn't show up on chest x-ray. Either way, it's probably appropriate to treat that pneumonia with adequate antibiotics. Now,